Let's move into our first story now. And the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition says until the three main factors involved in fighting corruption are synergized, Ghana's ranking on the Corruption Perception Index will remain exactly the same. Executive Secretary of the GACC Beauty, MF Anate, told Joy News, though there is a lot of work underway in stemming corruption, synergizing the education, prevention and prosecution bits have been overlooked. A latest global corruption perception index for the year 2017 puts Ghana as the 80th position out of 180 countries. There's the country's lowest score in its corruption history, making President Akufo-Addo's 1 year in office the worst since 2012. Well, let's get an understanding to why all the efforts being made in tackling corruption are not reflecting in the perception index. Bright Sowu is a senior research officer at the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, and he joins us in studio to tell us more. Welcome, Bright. Thanks for joining us.
Very much.
So what is accounting for the poor synergy in these factors in fighting corruption?
I'll give you a very simple example. I mean, we have the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. It's a 10-year plan, and out of that we pull activities every year that we are supposed to do to go to, fight against corruption. For 2016, that was the last report we had. Only 56 out of 325 institutions that cut across private sector, the public sector, and civil society organizations that are meant to report were able to actually do something reporting. That's about 17% of the expected institutions that are supposed to act and report on corruption. If you have 17% acting, then that pretty much tells you the story when we talk about synergy, because it's a collective effort. All these three sectors have to do their piece to be able to make sure that we move forward. And very little is being done among all these institutions. So really, we have this problem of, we are not moving as a collective, and it takes that collective to be able to get things done in the corruption field.
What you're telling me is that even though we have institutions in the corruption space, in the first place, those institutions are not working. It's
not just the institutions. So the institutions cannot work, they cannot do the work alone. So if you take even Church, for Church to be able to act, somebody has to make a report in some instances. Are Ghanaian citizens willing to make a report? Are they willing to testify as witnesses to that report? Are they willing to go through that process, complete that sustained effort in making that report? So it's something that really indicts almost every sector of the society. It's about citizens, about institutions, about government, really. It just simply cuts across.
Right, but in taking the leadership to make sure that citizens, for instance, work, some of these institutions come into play. So moving on, at what point do you think that some of the efforts that we have seen in the past year in this anti-corruption space will begin to yield dividend in, our ranking in corruption perception index and what have you?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because really, if you look at all the sources from which the CPI comes from, most of these look more at results, what they are seeing in the country. So like you rightly mentioned, we've had some efforts last year, maybe last 2 years also as fighting corruption. But until these efforts begin to actually real dividends, real results, it might not change how we place in the score. For example, you mentioned 1 year of Akufo-Addo's government. But really, if you look at the sources, some of them go back as far as 2016. So some of these results we are seeing, the 40 score is actually also dependent on factors that were measured back in 2016.
But so according to the release yesterday, we found that out of the 9 measures used in aggregating the global corruption perception index, only 2 of them are in 2016.
Yeah, 2 and 7 are in 2017.
Yeah, so the majority is still in 2017.
That's definitely factual. That's a fact. That's true.
Well, so moving forward, how much work do you think this latest, do you think we need to do to change the score?
I think a lot of the structures are in place, really, or, the official special has also just begun, and hopefully we'll see some work being done this year. I think a lot of the structures are in place. What we need to do is to be able to sustain the efforts. That's often an issue that we have in this country. We start initiatives, but how do we sustain it going forward? So the institutions are supposed to do education on a year-to-year basis. Are they able to move forward and do further education, target further groups? Or is it a one-time thing? And don't forget, some of these institutions like ours are also affected by funding. So until we have donor funds, we cannot execute some projects, some programs. So really, something different between us and the nations ahead of us in these terms of ranking is basically the sustainability of the efforts, not the initiatives themselves. There's nothing so novel out there that we have not really done, except for some few gaps in our laws that we need to bridge, like the right to information, witness protection, and a few others. But it's about sustaining the efforts that we really have.
But in light of the fact that, as you say, we are already making some efforts out there, should we even be bothered by this score?
We should, because, I mean, the score of 40 shows the decline that did not start only this year. Right from 2014, when we had our highest score of 48, we've been declining. In 2015, our score was 47. In 2016, our score was 43. This year, our score is 40. So we've been seeing decline the last 3 years. So we should be concerned and still be looking at what are we not doing right. As I pointed out, for example, we are not implementing the NACAP right. Just very few institutions are doing the activities that are meant for each year to be executed. So we need to begin to look at this and see where the problem is coming from. Is it a funding source? What is it? We need to really look at all these initiatives we already have. Are they really working? Apart from the fact that we put them in place. So we need to do some sort of evaluation there.
Right, so thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
This edition of Joy News today. Let's move on, and we'll be going to the Volta region, because chiefs and people of Akpafo Odomi in the Hohoe municipality of the Volta region have fumed over what they describe as the neglect of successive governments, depriving the community of development projects. According to them, an appreciable portion of Ghana's cocoa that is a major contributor to the country's economy comes from the area, but very little has been done by successive governments to develop the community. Joy News' Fred Kwame Asari visited there and filed the following report.
Akpafo Odomi is a predominant farming community located at the northeastern side of the Hohoe municipality along the Eastern Corridor Road in the Volta region. Though the community produces varied food crops such as maize, rice, plantain, among others, it is ranked the highest cocoa producing community in the Volta region. Cocoa cultivation has been a major commercial activity in Akpafo Odomi, and over 80% of the about 4,000 population engage in cocoa farming. With over 3 cocoa bean buying centers in the community, an estimate of over 1,000 bags of cocoa leaves Akpafo Odomi each month. Though an appreciable number of cocoa comes from Akpafo Odomi, the community is yet to adequately benefit from any of the interventions being implemented to cushion cocoa farmers. A youth in the community, Evans Shermer, laments access to cocoa beans for nursing has been a major challenge.
We suffer a lot to get the cocoa beans because we travel from here to Bonsu and Ampeyu to get the cocoa pods in the higher prices to come and nurse before we get to transplant it. So if the government can come to our aid in that side too, it will be very much appreciated.
The chief of Akpafo Odomi, Nanatete Atu IV, expressed displeasure at the insufficient supply of farm inputs to farmers and advocated for a soft loan scheme for the farmers.
The cocoa price should be increased to at least 500 Ghana cedis, because the last 2 years the NDC government attempted to increase the price, but because of a loan which was contracted from the Chinese government and cocoa was used as collateral, price was not increased. So the fertilizer which was being given to farmers free of charge was written off, claiming that there was a subsidy. But you see, farmers, as cocoa is a gestation crop, in gestation period they face a lot of problems. So my plea is the government should come out with packages for cocoa farmers, because cocoa is the backbone of the economy. So as workers, government workers access loans, cocoa farmers should also be given loans so that they can use it to buy insecticides and fertilizer during gestation period, so that at cocoa major seasons around October to December thereabout, then these loans can be paid off by farmers. By so doing, it will encourage farmers in the cocoa production industry.
Aside the insufficient supply of farm inputs, payments from the produce purchasing company delayed for about a month. According to residents, the only development project they have ever witnessed is the construction of a road which served as a major route linking the northern and southern parts of the Volta region. However, the road, which was constructed some 50 years ago, has completely deteriorated and not suitable for use by motorists. Other access roads in the community are not in the best of shapes, while the access road linking Akpafo Odomi to the Eastern Corridor Road network has been severely damaged by erosion. Availability of some social amenities such as potable water and a health center was solely engineered by the community under the leadership of traditional authorities. Nana Tete Atu IV, who is also the Adontinhini of the Dodo traditional area, Piedmont House successive governments have refused to reward his community for contributing to the growth of the country's economy.
Yes, it's obvious because we have nothing to show now as a development project which has been cited here in form of our cocoa production. So we are neglected in that area. So we pray the government will come over so that our schools, we have good structure so that our children can learn, and even the clinic, even our trunk road, left alone the eastern corridor, is not in good shape.
The community also lamented the lack of farming land and pleaded with government to release part of a forest reserve land area to enable the community get more land to increase cocoa production. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Akpafu Odomi.
Now, as many as 180 friends, family and other loved ones have been killed in more than 1,000 road crashes in January 2018 alone. These are the worrying statistics released by the National Road Safety Commission. Executive Director of the Commission, Engineer May Obri-Yeboah, called on the Transport Ministry to establish a regulatory body in the transport system.
Preliminary investigations conducted by the National Road Safety Commission on the above crashes have revealed multiple contributory factors. The most prevalent among the factors being negligence and disregard for road traffic regulations on the part of drivers involved in the crashes, particularly excessive speeding, usually referred to as overspeeding, and overtaking without due care for oncoming vehicles, which we normally refer to as wrongful overtaking. Also revealing among the contributory factors were deficiencies associated with road infrastructure, the absence of road signs, roadway markings, street lighting, and safe crossing facilities for pedestrians are issues that continue to find space in the list of crash contributory factors. I cannot talk about the road and the crashes and not talk about the dangers confronting motorists at road construction or work zones where contractors also fail to install the appropriate traffic management and safety signs and expose motorists to open trenches and physical objects without any protection. The questions that are often asked include: who or which agency awarded the contract to the contractor? Was there any provision made in the contract for work zone safety? Who is responsible for ensuring compliance by the contractor? What are the sanctions for non-compliance? Why are road signs and markers not in place? Why are they faded and not remarked or replaced? Why are there no street lights? We would like to encourage the media to also reach out to our sister agencies, Ghana Highway Authority and Department of Federal Roads and Urban Roads, and demand some of these answers from them. Other contributing factors to road traffic crashes are the non-roadworthy vehicles, unqualified drivers, and gross indiscipline by majority of road users. Ladies and gentlemen, the task of ensuring safety on our roads is a shared and collective responsibility. Everyone must play his or her role. Government on its part has, through the passing of the Road Traffic Act and regulation, that is the Road Traffic Act 683 of 2004 and the regulation LI 2180, provided policy and regulations for safe management of transport and traffic in the country. It is required that institutions and individuals apply the provisions for the good of public safety on our road.
Now, there are some fresh calls by theologians and security experts for laws to regulate the activities of prophets in Ghana. The calls come at the back of public criticism of some prophecies in the wake of the singer Ebony Rain's death. As you may know, some men of God who predicted her death have also been warning of impending deaths of other personalities. But security experts Dr. Chris Yening says the activities and utterances of these religious leaders pose a threat to national security. Here's Bill Richter's report.
Profile conference in Accra on prophetism in Ghanaian public life, the high-profile speakers agreed there is the need to regulate the activities of these religious men. This, they say, is crucial, especially because in the last few days, after singer Ebony Rain's death, many more prophets have emerged claiming to have received revelations and prophecies that dancehall artist Shatta Wale will also die. Security analyst and head of research at the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center, Dr. Kwesi Enin, described such doomsday prophets as a threat to national security and democracy.
The practice of predicting and prophesying about the generality of life, the outcome of elections, who will die, who will get money, who will be cursed, has become part of the public discourse. Useful as religion can be, some of these practices are causing fear and panic, uncertainty, undermining the public order, and it's threatening our democracy and the rule of law. There's a general sense of foreboding in this country. Public policy is tinged with fear because if that policy is enacted and implemented in a manner that goes against a particular pastor, you will be cursed. That those who seek to protect us seek protection from the spiritual. Directive principles of state policy does not work because there's no national security policy within which that directive principles of state policy must fit. It's hanging loosely. And therefore, we are confronted with a set of actions and utterances that can be perceived as having a potential or actual threat, or that can pose an actual threat or a potential threat to our security.
Legal practitioner and executive director of ACT Foundation, Angela Dramina Abuaji, called on Parliament to pass laws to regulate the activities and utterances of such prophets to sanitize the system.
Legally, we are in a very free country. Our constitution guarantees us so many freedoms and rights that it practically seems as if everything can go in Ghana. It's time to test some of our constitutional provisions and some of our civil laws and so on matters like these, so that we can bring some sanity. Article 15(2)(b) directly addresses the implications, the impacts, the effects on human beings who have had to bear some of the utterances that are coming out of our prophets.
Meanwhile, Vice President of Trinity Theological Seminary, Very Reverend Professor Asamoah Gyedu, has expressed worry about the commercialization of the prophetic ministry in Ghana.
The ministry of the prophetic, although biblically and theologically justifiable, has in Ghana become something else. It's been so commercialized and commodified, and its overall impact on Christianity in this country is not likely to be positive if we do not voice out our concern as Christian leaders. We have simply been unwilling to rely on scientific data and research in the solution to problems. My fear lies in the fact that these practices have become so popular and rampant that they are becoming the norm and molding what counts as authentic prophetic Christianity in contemporary Ghana. Above all, the prophetic has degenerated into a means of sowing fear in the lives of people and keeping them dependent on the prophet for solutions to problems that could otherwise be solved by changes in lifestyle and pragmatic choices.
The conference, which was organized by Kingdom Equip Network, a religious organization, was attended by high-profile religious leaders, including chairman of the Church of Pentecost, Apostle Opoku Onyina.
Still watching Joy News today. My name is Daniel Daze. Stories gone by so far. Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition attributes Ghana's unimpressive corruption perception index score to poor synergy of the factors aimed at fighting the canker. And up ahead, scientists advocate urgent action in ensuring a healthy food environment to tackle obesity in Ghana and promote good health. Also on our Tech Thursday segment, we tell you about a clay stove innovation which is making life cheaper and easier for some rural dwellers in parts of northern Ghana. Stay with us. Glad you stayed with us. Now, scientists are advocating a national policy to tackle overweight and obesity among Ghanaians. Principal investigator of researching obesogenic food environments says the situation requires urgent action for healthy food environment. Dr. Reginald Ajete Anand spoke at a collaborative research workshop in Kumasi.
Yeah, boss. I try to cook Kumasi more.
Albert Blankson needs to restock his consumables. He usually buys them in bulk. There's no better place than the Kumasi City Mall. It's a 10-minute drive from home, but he seems not bothered.
For petty stuff, with like coke, water and bread or something, I get them from the local areas.
A 2016 study in Ghana shows 99.9% of households depend on traditional markets to source their food, including processed. Preference is attributed to greater variety, lower price and proximity.
What some have described as supermarketization occurs in Ghana. It is occurring, but it's still at the very early stages. That's where we are. Now, people tend to buy more traditional foodstuffs, and then they would also buy processed foods. But essentially, people are buying from, the question we really wanted to answer is where are they buying from? And they are buying from open markets.
Researchers stress need for interventions to ensure local markets stock a variety of fresh rather than processed foods to promote health. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 2 billion adults across the globe were estimated to be overweight in 2014. Recent study shows 43% of Ghanaian adults are found to be obese. Health professionals establish obesity is an important risk factor for diabetes, high blood pressure, and other non-communicable diseases.
People from government,
preliminary findings suggest Ghana's environment is flooded with foods that increase the risk of obesity and associated complications.
Food environment is also driven by trade, and trade policies determine what is available. Now, we know, using the turkey tail example, that a policy that restricts the amount of fat that is in meat can reduce unhealthy food in the environment. Using this, we think that both the formal and informal sector need to be targeted on
Researching obesogenic food environments is a 3-year joint study between Ghana and South Africa. Funded by International Development Research Center, it seeks to understand changing nature of food marketed in poor communities in both countries.
Uncommunicable diseases as a result of that is a complex matter. It's not something that can be investigated by one individual or one grouping, but it actually requires multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary interaction.
The second phase of the program will focus on retail energy and value chain.
These are something that we want to understand.
For Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
To Tech Thursday now, and toxic smoke inhaled during cooking accounts for about 6,000 deaths annually in Ghana. That's according to a WHO report. An innovation made of clay that depends on solar energy in helping encourage clean cooking and reducing the volume of fuel wood is needed. For Joy News' Tech Thursday series, Justice Beidou has more.
This is a familiar sight in Ghana. Searching for firewood in a scorching sun. Women like Kathio Roda walk, sometimes for hours, just so they can cook. The result, depleting forests and with it, implications for human health. Traditional cooking in Ghana itself means women inhale toxic amounts of smoke, which is now responsible for about 6,000 deaths annually.
Our local stoves have open spaces, so consume a lot of firewood. So we cut a lot of trees. They emit a lot of smoke. It makes my eyes red, and when you sleep, it's like there's something piercing your eyes.
This is Cecilia Awuni and her family on the outskirts of the Upper East regional town of Navrongo. She is charging her solar cooking stove, which saves her fuel wood and emits less smoke. This is the receiver that has to be put on the roof, usually for about 5 hours. Once it gets enough of the charging, you can turn on the system itself. Then it blows some sort of air into the base where you put the charcoal in. That means then that the level of charcoal that this one will use comes drastically down, sometimes up to 1/10 of what you could have used on the same amount of cooking. What is on top of this? It even has a charging slot, so you only need your USB, and once we insert it here, it is charging. This could be a life-changing innovation, especially for communities like this that are off-grid and usually do not have electricity access.
Now, with just small firewood, we can cook for 2 days. Even with 1 cedi worth of charcoal, we can cook. We are now early in school because we cook with ease.
Julius Awarija, founder of civil society group Urges, is behind this innovation.
And the only way we can reduce climate change impact is to reduce the volume of wood we cut in our forests for cooking. Unlike countries like Kenya, who remove tax on these stoves, our country has a huge tax burden to bring these stoves.
In northern Ghana, like many parts of the country, there is sunshine in abundance. This innovation could now be a game changer in how that is put to use. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Navrongo.
I definitely charged my phone on that stove. But it's now time for business with Emmanuel Avajiriafi.